I was returning from the notary in a good mood, imagining how I would tell my daughter and son-in-law about the inheritance from my brother, a villa on the ocean front, and 2 apartments that would change our lives. But as I approached the house, I heard their voices through the open window. Their words made me freeze in horror. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The phone rang while I was sorting through old case files in my home office. Fridays usually meant quiet mornings, but the unfamiliar number on the screen made me hesitate before answering. Mr. Brooks, this is Amber Foster, Notary Public. I need you to come to my office immediately regarding your brother James's estate. Can you be here within the hour? Her voice carried that particular urgency lawyers recognize, controlled crisis. My chest tightened. James, Yes, I can be there. What happened? We'll discuss everything in person. My office is downtown, Spring Street. I'll text you the address. The line went dead before I could ask more questions. James, we hadn't spoken in almost 3 years, not since he'd moved to Florida chasing some real estate venture. Childhood felt like another lifetime. 2 brothers running through summer streets, building forts, sharing secrets. Then careers pulled us apart. His marriage failed. Mine lasted exactly 11 years, and distance became easier than effort. I grabbed my keys and headed for the car. Traffic choked the 110 as I merged toward downtown, giving me too much time to think. James had been 59, healthy last I knew. Heart attack, accident. The possibilities cycled through my prosecutor's mind, each scenario analyzed and discarded. Amber Foster's office occupied a modest suite in an older building. She was younger than I expected, maybe 36, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. The room smelled like copy toner and furniture polish. Mr. Brooks, thank you for coming quickly. Please sit. I lowered myself into the leather chair across from her desk. She opened a manila folder, and I caught my brother's name typed across the top document. Your brother passed away last week. Sudden cardiac event. I'm sorry for your loss. Last week. While I was watching baseball and complaining about my water bill, James was dying alone in some Florida apartment. Guilt pressed against my ribs. I didn't know. Nobody called me. He had few contacts listed, but his will was very specific. Amber's fingers traced down the page. To my brother Thaddeus Brooks, I leave my entire estate. The Malibu property at Ocean View Drive, valued at $3.1 million, and 2 condominiums in Santa Monica, collectively worth $1.1 million. The numbers didn't register at first. I removed my reading glasses, cleaned them slowly with my shirt hem, buying time while my brain caught up. I don't understand. James and I barely spoke these past few years. Are you certain there's no mistake? No mistake, Mr. Brooks. He was very specific. He added a note, for the brother who always did the right thing. Something hot and uncomfortable swelled in my throat. For the brother who always did the right thing, James remembered. Through all the silence and distance, he remembered who I'd tried to be. Amber slid papers across the desk. I need your signature here and here. We'll begin the transfer process immediately. Tax implications will require consultation with your accountant, but the properties are legally yours. My hand trembled slightly as I signed. 67 years old, 2 years into retirement on a prosecutor's pension, and suddenly I owned property worth over $4 million. The pen felt too light, the moment too surreal. How soon can I access the properties? Within 2 weeks once probate clears. The Malibu house is furnished, maintained by a property management company. The Santa Monica units are currently rented, generating monthly income. Monthly income. The words tasted foreign. I'd spent decades putting criminals away, living modestly, doing the work because it mattered. Money had never been the point. But now, sitting in this sterile office holding documents that represented more wealth than I'd earned in my entire career, I felt something dangerous blooming in my chest. Hope. I thanked Amber, shook her hand again, and walked back to my car in a daze. The afternoon sun warmed my face as I pulled onto the street. Megan would be thrilled. My daughter and her husband Arnold had been living with me for 8 months now, their finances in shambles from what they'd vaguely described as bad investments. I'd been supporting them, watching my retirement savings shrink, never complaining because that's what fathers do. But now everything would change. I could help them properly, maybe even give them one of the Santa Monica condos, Family taking care of family, the way it should be. I rehearsed the words as I drove. Keep it simple. Don't oversell. Just, James left me some property. We're going to be fine. The familiar streets of Pasadena appeared, tree-lined and peaceful. I turned onto my block, saw my house ahead, with its faded blue shutters and overgrown lawn. My modest retirement palace, about to become a stepping stone to something better. I pulled up outside and cut the engine, already smiling. I parked on the street instead of pulling into the driveway. Some instinct I couldn't name. The living room window stood open, unusual for midday when we typically kept the house sealed against the heat. Voices drifted out, tense and urgent. Megan and Arnold. My hand froze on the car door. Something in their tone stopped me from calling out, from announcing my arrival. Instead, I found myself moving quietly toward the window, ducking behind the overgrown azalea bushes that desperately needed trimming. The branches scratched my arms, but I held still, listening. If Dad finds out about our debts, he'll throw us out. We can't let that happen, Arnold. We can't. Megan's voice carried that whining edge I'd heard too often lately. But the words themselves? Debts? What debts? He won't find out. We stick to the plan. Arnold's response came flat, emotionless. Tomorrow, you drive him to that psychiatrist I told you about. Guy will write whatever we need for $1,500 cash. My stomach dropped. Psychiatrist? My fingers tightened around my car keys until the metal bit into my palm. What if he refuses to go? Dad's stubborn. He'll ask questions. Then we slip something in his coffee. Sedative. Easy. Arnold's voice held no hesitation, no shame. Once he's in the nursing home, no one listens to old people anyway. His house, his assets, all ours through guardianship. The words landed like physical blows. Nursing home, guardianship, my own daughter and her husband, plotting to drug me, to declare me incompetent, to steal everything I'd worked for. The azalea branches pressed against my back, holding me frozen in a crouch that made my knees ache. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And what about the inheritance? Megan again, sounding excited now. That villa and those apartments. He mentioned James left him properties. We need to move fast before he changes his will. They knew. They'd been listening to my phone calls or snooping through my papers. The violation cut deeper than the conspiracy itself. That's why we moved tomorrow. Arnold's footsteps crossed the room. Get him declared incompetent, establish guardianship, transfer everything. The psychiatrist knows the script. Depression, memory loss, inability to manage finances. Judge will sign off within a week. What if someone questions it? His friends? What friends? The man's a hermit, retired prosecutor who spends his days reading old case files and watching game shows. Nobody's going to fight for him. The clinical assessment of my isolation stung because it was true. I'd let relationships atrophy, focused on work for so long that retirement had left me adrift and alone. Except for Megan. I'd thought at least I had Megan. Her voice wavered. He's still my father. He's an obstacle. Arnold's words came sharp, final. $1,500 for the psychiatrist, maybe another $1,000 for the lawyer who handles guardianship. Small price for $4 million in property. You want to keep hiding from debt collectors? You want them showing up here, asking questions? Silence. Then Megan, quieter now. No, you're right. We do this tomorrow. I backed away from the window, one careful step at a time. My prosecutor's brain had already clicked into gear, cataloging evidence, analyzing the case, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, unlawful drugging. The charges stacked up cleanly in my mind, a familiar organizational pattern that steadied my shaking hands. I reached my car, eased the door open without sound, and slid behind the wheel, started the engine as quietly as possible, and pulled away from the curb. In my rearview mirror, the house looked the same. Blue shutters, overgrown lawn, the life I thought I knew. My hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to make the leather creak. Megan's voice echoed in my head. He's still my father. Said like an inconvenience, not a bond. And Arnold's response, he's an obstacle. I drove without destination, just needing distance. The streets of Pasadena blurred past while my mind worked through the problem systematically. No confrontation yet. Confrontation required leverage, evidence, a strategy that guaranteed victory. I'd spent 35 years in courtrooms. I knew how to build a case. They wanted to declare me incompetent, to drug me and warehouse me while they liquidated my life. The inheritance James left me, the validation I'd felt an hour ago in Amber Foster's office, now became something else entirely. Ammunition. I needed time to think, to plan, to become what I'd always been. A prosecutor building an airtight case against criminals who thought they were clever enough to get away with it. The afternoon sun slanted through my windshield, and I just kept driving. I drove for several blocks before I could think clearly. The betrayal kept looping through my mind. Their voices, their casual planning, the way Arnold had called me an obstacle. But rage wouldn't help. Rage was for amateurs. I spotted Memorial Park, pulled into the small lot. The place was nearly empty on a weekday afternoon, just a few joggers and someone walking a collie. I chose a bench beneath an oak tree, far enough from the playground that I could think without distraction. For the first few minutes, I sat with my head in my hands, letting the enormity wash over me. My daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart, who'd walked down the aisle holding my arm. That same person now planning to drug me into a nursing home. Then something clicked. The prosecutor's mind, dormant for 2 years, but never truly retired, activated like muscle memory. I straightened my back, folded my hands, and looked at the situation differently. Evidence. That's what mattered. What did I actually have? An overheard conversation. No recording. No witnesses. Any defense attorney worth their retainer would shred it in 5 minutes. Hearsay. Inadmissible. My word against theirs, and who sounds more credible? A devoted daughter or a bitter old man? I'd prosecuted cases like this. The Martinez case, 8 years ago. Son drugging his mother to gain power of attorney, stealing her property. We'd caught him because the mother's neighbor recorded suspicious behavior, physical evidence, documentation, the Chen guardianship fraud, similar pattern, similar solution. You can't arrest people for planning crimes, you arrest them for committing crimes, which meant I needed them to act. The thought settled cold and clear in my chest. Let them proceed. Let them show me the corrupt psychiatrist. Let them attempt the drugging. Let them file the fraudulent paperwork. Every action would be evidence. Every step would tighten the noose. I pulled out the small notepad I'd carried for decades, habit from casework. Wrote 4 numbered items in precise handwriting. 1. Record future conversations, voice-activated devices. 2. Document contact with psychiatrist, photos, recordings, payment evidence. 3. Capture drugging attempt, camera in kitchen, witness if possible. 4. Coordinate with police at exact right moment, California Penal Code. 368. Elder abuse. PC 182. Conspiracy to commit fraud. PC 532. Obtaining property through false pretenses. I could recite the statutes from memory, along with typical sentences. 3 to 4 years imprisonment, restitution, permanent criminal records. The afternoon sun slanted through the oak branches, casting patterns on my notepad. I checked my watch, about an hour since I'd left the house. They probably assumed I was running errands, maybe shopping for dinner like I usually did on Fridays. Good. Let them stay comfortable. I scrolled through my phone contacts, found Stanley Morrison's number. Stanley and I had worked together for 15 years at the DA's office before he'd shifted to criminal defense. Smart lawyer, trustworthy. More importantly, he understood elder fraud cases intimately. We'd prosecuted dozens together. The phone rang twice. Stanley Morrison. Stanley, it's Thaddeus Brooks. I need your legal expertise on a criminal matter. How soon can you meet? His tone shifted immediately. Thad, everything all right? You sound... No, not a hypothetical. This is active conspiracy to commit elder fraud, and I'm the target. Silence. Then, someone's targeting you? Who? Wait, you said elder fraud. You're the victim? His voice climbed half an octave. I can meet you in 30 minutes. My office. Don't do anything until we talk. I won't. I'm thinking like a prosecutor now, not a victim. I stood, joints stiff from sitting. The movement felt good, purposeful. They're planning to move tomorrow, which gives me tonight to build a case. I need recording devices and a contact at Pasadena PD Fraud Division. I've got voice-activated recorders in my office, small, undetectable. Stanley's voice had shifted into professional mode, the same tone he'd used when we'd strategized cases together. And I know exactly who you need at PPD, Detective Danielle Chen. She worked with us on the Riverside guardianship cases. Sharp, thorough. I'll call her. Good, I'm heading to you now. I walked toward my car, the notepad still in my hand. The park felt surreal, children laughing on swings, couples walking hand in hand, ordinary life continuing while mine fractured. But fractures could be set. Bones could heal stronger than before. I slid behind the wheel, started the engine. The drive to Stanley's office would take 20 minutes in light traffic. 20 minutes to prepare my explanation, to organize the facts, to transform family tragedy into a prosecutable case. They'd called me an obstacle. Fine. But obstacles don't just disappear. Sometimes they become walls you can't climb. Sometimes they become traps you don't see until it's too late. I pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward Colorado Boulevard, where Stanley's office waited. I made it to Stanley's office in 20 minutes. The building stood modest but professional, beige stucco with tinted windows that reflected the fading afternoon light. His suite occupied the third floor, accessible through a lobby that smelled like air conditioning and carpet cleaner. Stanley met me at his office door. He looked exactly as I remembered, medium build, dark hair graying at the temples, rolled up shirt sleeves that meant he'd been working, but his expression held something new, concern mixed with the sharp focus I recognized from the courtroom preparation. Sit, talk. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk, then closed the door. Start from the beginning. I told him everything. The inheritance call, the drive home, the open window, the overheard conspiracy. Every word Arnold had spoken, every weak objection Megan had offered. Stanley listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, another habit from our prosecutor days. When I finished, he set down his pen and exhaled slowly. Your own daughter, that's... He caught himself, shifted gears. All right, legal framework first. In California, what they're planning hits multiple statutes. PC 182, conspiracy to commit fraud. PC 532, obtaining property through false pretenses. PC 368, elder abuse with intent to defraud. We're looking at 3 to 4 years imprisonment per count, potentially consecutive if the DA is feeling aggressive. Which they will be, given the circumstances. I leaned forward. But I need evidence, solid, court-admissible evidence. Exactly. Stanley stood, moved to a filing cabinet, pulled out a drawer. Voice-activated recorders. I use these for client meetings when I need backup documentation. 2-hour battery life, motion-activated, USB disguised. California's a one-party consent state for recordings, which means I can record conversations I'm part of without their knowledge, legal and admissible. The familiar territory steadied me. This I understood. This was procedure, protocol, the machinery of justice. He handed me 2 small devices, each about the size of a lighter. Keep one in your shirt pocket, one in the kitchen. They'll capture everything within 15 feet. Crystal clear audio, time-stamped files that download to any computer. I turned one over in my palm, surprisingly light. And the psychiatrist, they mentioned paying him $1,500 cash. That's bribery of a medical professional, possibly medical fraud. If you can photograph the exchange, record their conversation with him, that's ironclad. Stanley pulled out his phone. I'm calling Detective Chen. She needs to hear this directly from you. Understand the timeline. He dialed, switched to speaker. 3 rings, then a woman's voice, crisp and professional. Chen, Fraud Division. Danielle, it's Stanley Morrison. I've got Thaddeus Brooks in my office. Yeah, former ADA Brooks. He's the victim in an active elder fraud conspiracy, and we need your involvement. I'm putting him on. Mr. Brooks? Her tone shifted, respectful. I remember your work. What's the situation? I outlined the conspiracy again, more concisely this time. Chen asked pointed questions. Timeline, specific threats, evidence currently available, resources of the conspirators. A good detective, thorough without wasting time. Here's how we'll proceed, she said finally. Gather recordings of them discussing the plan, document any contact with medical professionals. If they attempt drugging, that's aggravated assault. Call 911 immediately. I'll have a patrol unit on standby starting tomorrow morning. The moment you have actionable evidence, we move." "What about the psychiatrist?" I asked. "If they meet with him tomorrow, I'll run background checks tonight, see if any local psychiatrists have prior complaints or investigations. If we can identify him before the meeting, that helps our case." "But Mr. Brooks," she paused, "you're walking into a dangerous situation. These are people who've already planned to drug you. Don't underestimate them." "I spent 35 years prosecuting criminals," I said quietly. "I won't underestimate them, but they've already underestimated me." We ended the call. Stanley walked to his small office refrigerator, pulled out 2 bottles of water, handed me one. The gesture felt absurdly normal, like we were just colleagues catching up, not preparing to take down my own family. "You need to act completely natural when you go home," he said. "They can't suspect you know anything. Can you do that?" I thought about the thousands of witnesses I'd prepared, the defendants I'd watched lie under oath, the performances I'd evaluated in the courtroom after courtroom. "I can do that." "Good." He handed me a business card. "My cell's on there. Anything seems wrong, anything escalates, you call immediately. I don't care if it's midnight." I pocketed the recorders, slipped the card into my wallet, shook Stanley's hand, firm grip, the kind that meant partnership, not just professional courtesy. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. Through the lobby windows, I could see evening settling over Pasadena, streetlights beginning to glow. Somewhere in the city, my daughter and her husband were probably making dinner in my kitchen, refining their scheme, counting my money before they'd even stolen it. I reached my car, sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. The recorders pressed against my chest pocket, small and hard, tools of truth, instruments of justice. Tomorrow I'd return home and pretend nothing had changed. I'd smile at Megan, tolerate Arnold, drink coffee and eat breakfast while they watched for signs of weakness. They wanted a confused old man? I'd give them a performance worthy of an Oscar. Then I'd watch them destroy themselves, one recorded word at a time. I started the engine and headed home. I made it home just as evening settled in, the sky fading from orange to purple. The drive had taken about 20 minutes, enough time to compose my face into something resembling normalcy. Before leaving the car, I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, practiced the smile of a man with good news to share. The recorder pressed against my chest, a hidden truth beneath manufactured calm. The front door opened before I could reach for my keys. Megan stood there, face instantly morphing into concerned daughter mode. "Dad, you were gone so long, we were worried sick. You didn't answer your phone." Her voice pitched higher than usual. Stress marker. "Where were you? Are you feeling all right? You look tired." I returned her hug, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way her arms barely squeezed before releasing. Arnold appeared behind her, standing from the couch with careful concern painted across his features. "Just drove around a bit after seeing Stanley. Needed to clear my head, thinking about James, the funeral arrangements, all of it." I moved past them into the living room, deliberately casual. "Sorry I didn't call. Didn't mean to worry you." "Stanley Morrison, that's the lawyer, right?" Arnold's question came too quickly. "What kind of cases were you discussing? Anything we should know about?" Testing me, looking for signs of suspicion. "Ancient history mostly, cases we worked together, people we knew at the DA's office, old men reminiscing." I smiled, let it reach my eyes. Years of witness preparation had taught me how to construct believable lies. "He's doing well. Asked about you two." Megan relaxed visibly. Arnold's shoulders dropped half an inch. They believed me. "I made chicken," Megan said. "We ate earlier than usual, 6 o'clock, but there's plenty left. You must be starving." The dining room table had been set for 3. They'd waited for me, probably worried I'd discovered something, gone to the police. I sat in my usual chair, accepted the plate Megan brought, and waited until we'd all started eating. Then I dropped the bait. "Actually, I have incredible news. James left me his entire estate, villa in Malibu, 2 condos in Santa Monica." I paused, watching them. "The notary estimates it's worth close to $5 million. Can you believe it? $5 million. The real value was $4.2 million, but inflation served a purpose. Make them reckless, make them urgent." Arnold's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Megan's breath caught audibly. Under the table, their hands found each other. I saw the movement, the silent communication passing between them. That's incredible, Dad. Megan's voice trembled. 5 million. James really came through for you. For us, I corrected gently. You're my daughter. This changes things for all of us. I let hope color my tone, played the generous father. Maybe you two can finally get back on your feet. Maybe one of those Santa Monica condos could be yours. Arnold's pupils dilated, greed, naked and unmistakable. That's generous, Thaddeus, very generous. He set down his fork with careful precision. We appreciate everything you've done for us these past months. Past tense, as if I were already gone. After dinner, Megan cleared dishes while Arnold and I moved to the living room. I settled into my armchair, grabbed yesterday's newspaper as a prop. Natural movement took me past the bookshelf where I'd positioned the first recorder in my pocket earlier. My hand brushed the spine of a law dictionary, fingers finding the small device behind it. One press, silent activation, 2 seconds that looked like nothing. I opened the newspaper, appearing to read. Arnold moved to the window, pulled out his phone, dialed. His voice dropped low, but the recorder would catch everything within 15 feet. Dr. Martinez, Arnold Watson, tomorrow, 10 a.m., confirmed, my father-in-law. He turned slightly away from me. You'll evaluate him for competency issues, provide the documentation we need, $1,500 in cash, as agreed. Don't worry, he won't suspect anything. Trusting old man. Each word landed in my mind like physical evidence. Conspiracy to commit fraud, bribery of a medical professional, elder abuse. The charges stacked themselves neatly, ready for prosecution. Arnold pocketed his phone, returned to the couch. Everything all right with your friend? I asked, eyes still on the newspaper. Business thing, nothing important. He smiled. Tomorrow's going to be a good day, Thaddeus. A really good day. Megan returned from the kitchen, dried her hands on a dish towel. Dad, I was thinking, tomorrow I should take you for a checkup. Just routine. You're at that age where regular medical visits are important. She tried to sound casual, failed. I already made an appointment for mid-morning. That's thoughtful. I folded the newspaper, set it aside. What time? 10 o'clock, not too early. You can sleep in a bit. Sounds perfect. I stood, stretched. Think I'll turn in soon. Long day, emotional day. Of course, Dad. Megan moved to hug me again. We're so happy for you. About the inheritance. About everything. I held her briefly, this stranger wearing my daughter's face. I'm happy too, sweetheart. Things are finally looking up. In my peripheral vision, Arnold and Megan exchanged a glance. Satisfaction. Victory assumed. I climbed the stairs to my room, movements slow, portraying exhaustion. Behind me, their voices dropped to whispers, too low for me to hear naturally, but the recorder would catch them. Inside my bedroom, I closed the door and waited. The evening continued, tension thick beneath normal conversation. I could hear them downstairs, moving through the house, their voices occasionally rising enough for me to catch fragments. My door stayed slightly ajar, believable for a man with nothing to hide. Around 7 o'clock, footsteps climbed the stairs. A gentle knock. Dad, I brought you chamomile tea, your favorite. Megan's voice carried practiced sweetness. Drink it while it's hot. It'll help you sleep. I opened the door, accepted the cup from her hands. Steam rose from the surface, and beneath it, barely visible, a slight cloudiness that didn't belong in pure chamomile. You're so thoughtful. I smiled at her, this woman who'd grown inside my wife's body, who'd called me daddy until she was 12. Thank you, sweetheart. Sleep well. She squeezed my arm, turned away. I closed the door, locked it quietly. The cup sat on my nightstand while I retrieved the empty glass water bottle from my closet. Purchased yesterday. Kept clean for exactly this purpose. I poured half the tea into the bottle, sealed it tight. Physical evidence. Chain of custody maintained. The remaining tea went down the bathroom sink in silence. Then I filled the cup halfway with water from the tap, swirled it to match the original level. Chamomile coloring from the residue made it look untouched. Now came the performance of my career. I opened my door again, carried the empty cup downstairs. Megan sat on the couch, Arnold beside her, both watching television with manufactured calm. That was perfect. I set the cup on the coffee table. Already feeling drowsy, I think I'll I let myself sway slightly, caught the back of the armchair. Wow, really tired. Here, Dad, let me help you. Megan jumped up, took my arm. Concern and calculation competed in her expression. Come on, let's get you to bed. I leaned on her, playing the sedated man. My words came slightly slurred. Strange, so tired all of a sudden. It's been an emotional day, the inheritance news, everything. She guided me toward the stairs. You need rest. Arnold appeared on my other side. Together they walked me up, their hands firm on my arms. Escorts or captors, the line had blurred. In my bedroom, I collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, let my eyes close, breathe deep and steady, feigning the first stages of drug sleep. Is he out? Arnold's whisper carried clearly. Give it a few more minutes. Megan's response. The dosage should work within 30 minutes. He'll be completely unconscious for at least 8 hours. They left, pulling my door almost closed. Footsteps retreated downstairs. I waited, counted to 300. Then I rose silently, moved to my closet, and retrieved the second recorder from my jacket pocket. My smartphone connected to it via Bluetooth, technology that would have seemed like science fiction during my early prosecutor days. Now a standard tool. The app activated the device I'd planted downstairs. Through my earbuds, their voices came through crystal clear. Can't believe he just drank it? Megan, nervous laughter in her voice. I told you he wouldn't suspect. Trusting old fool. Arnold, confident, dismissive. Tomorrow morning, we wake him at 9, get him dressed, drive him to Martinez's office. 1 evaluation, 1,500 cash, and we've got documentation of mental incompetence. And then we file for emergency guardianship. My lawyer says we can have it granted within 72 hours given the medical evidence. Once that's done, we control everything. His bank accounts, the inheritance, all of it. What if he fights it? With what? Once Martinez signs those papers, your father's legally incompetent. His word means nothing. We sell the Malibu property immediately. $5 million, cash buyers already waiting. Split it, pay off our debts, disappear if we need to. Our debts are almost $300,000, Arnold. The casino will get paid. Then we're free. New start, new life. His voice hardened. Your father was useful when we needed a place to stay. Now he's more useful as a source of funds. That's just reality. He's still my father. Weak protest, ritual more than resistance. He's a means to an end. Don't get sentimental now. We've come too far. Silence. Then Megan. You're right. We need this. We deserve this after everything. I sat in darkness, recording every word. Each sentence another nail in their legal coffin. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, attempted drugging, filing false medical documents. The charges multiplied. My phone vibrated. Text from Stanley. Status? I typed quickly. Evidence captured. Drugging attempted. Physical sample preserved. Recording their full confession now. Appointment tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Dr. Martinez's office. Need address. Detective Chen advised. His response came immediately. Sending Chen audio files now. We'll have address by morning. PD will be ready. Stay safe. I forwarded the audio files through encrypted email. Prosecutor habits died hard. Subject line, evidence, elder fraud conspiracy. Recipients, Stanley Morrison, Detective Danielle Chen. Below, Arnold's voice continued through my earbuds. Guardianship grants us power of attorney. We make all medical decisions, all financial decisions. If he becomes a problem, there are facilities, long-term care places where nobody asks questions. They were sealing their own fate, one recorded word at a time. 35 years prosecuting criminals had taught me exactly what I needed. Now I had it. I remained dressed, sitting in darkness, phone in hand. Night had fully settled beyond my window. Hours until morning, hours until they'd try to take me to their corrupt psychiatrist, hours until they'd discover what happens when you corner a prosecutor in his own home. Late evening. The house was quiet except for the television downstairs. Canned laughter from some sitcom, commercial jingles for products I'd never buy. I sat in darkness, listening to them settle into their comfortable evening, believing I lay drugged and unconscious upstairs. I waited until I heard the sounds deepen, stabilize. Then I eased my bedroom door open, moved down the hallway in socks. The third step on the stairs creaked. I remembered from years of late-night trips to the kitchen. I skipped it, kept to the wall where the boards held firm. Through the living room archway, I could see the television's glow, their silhouettes on the couch. The back door opened silently. I'd oiled the hinges 3 months ago. My home office sat at the rear of the property, a converted garage partially concealed by oak trees. I'd used it occasionally during my prosecutor years. Secure storage for sensitive case files. A place to work when the house felt too small. Megan had been here once, maybe twice when she was young. She wouldn't remember it. Arnold had never had reason to know it existed. I unlocked the door, flipped on the lights. The space smelled like old paper and dust. Filing cabinets lined one wall. My old desk commanded the center. A small window faced the driveway. I arranged chairs, set the tea bottle under the desk lamp like crime scene evidence, and pulled out my phone. Text to Stanley. At office. When you arrive, come to back of property. Detached building. Door will be unlocked. His reply came immediately. 20 minutes. While I waited, I organized. The recordings on my phone, cued and ready. The bottle positioned for optimal viewing. My old legal pad with notes about timeline, charges, evidence chain. Muscle memory from decades of case preparation. Headlights swept the driveway. Stanley emerged carrying a laptop and legal pad, tools of our shared trade. He entered, looked around at the familiar setup, and set his materials on the desk. "Play them," he said simply. I started with Arnold's call to Dr. Martinez. Stanley's expression hardened as Arnold's voice filled the small office. 10 a.m., confirmed. My father-in-law. You'll evaluate him for competency issues, provide the documentation we need, $1,500 in cash, as agreed. Then the post-drugging conversation, every word of their plan laid bare. The guardianship scheme, the property seizure, their callous assessment of me as obstacle and resource. Stanley opened his laptop, pulled up California Penal Code. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. PC 182, conspiracy to commit fraud under PC 182. The drugging attempt, that's PC 347, administering a controlled substance to aid commission of a felony. And the bribe to the psychiatrist is PC 67.5. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Thad, they're looking at 3 to 4 years minimum, each. Good. The word came flat, emotionless. 35 years prosecuting had taught me to separate law from feeling. This was simply consequence meeting action. More headlights. Detective Danielle Chen's unmarked sedan pulled up, 2 uniformed officers with her. She entered briskly, badge clipped to her belt, field test kit in hand. Mr. Brooks. She shook my hand, firm grip, professional respect. I've reviewed the audio files you sent. Now I need to see the physical evidence. I handed her the bottle. She held it up to the light, examining the slight cloudiness, then opened her kit. A small glass vial, reagent drops, a testing strip. She added liquid from the bottle, watched the chemical reaction. Blue-purple bloomed instantly. Zolpidem, prescription sedative. She photographed the result with her phone, documented time and date in a small notebook. That's PC 347, administering a drug to aid commission of a felony. Possession with intent to incapacitate. Stanley leaned forward. Danielle, what's your recommendation on timing? Chen set down the bottle, crossed her arms. Her expression was all business. We have enough for arrest warrants right now. Conspiracy, attempted drugging, the recordings provide probable cause. She paused, eyes moving between Stanley and me. But I recommend we let them proceed to this doctor's office tomorrow. When they hand over cash and accept fraudulent documents, we arrest all 3, your daughter, her husband, and Dr. Martinez. Catches them mid-crime. No defense attorney can argue they changed their minds or were just talking. Stanley nodded slowly. From a prosecution standpoint, Danielle's right. Catching them with cash in hand, receiving falsified medical documentation, that's incontrovertible. Actions, not just words. I understood the strategy immediately. Maximum charges, minimum wiggle room for defense. Every element of the crime completed before intervention. I'll act compliant when Megan wakes me tomorrow morning. I'll go to this doctor's office with them. I looked at Chen. You'll be following? My team establishes surveillance on your house at 6 a.m. When you leave with them, we follow at a distance. You're never at risk. We'll be close. Her voice carried absolute certainty. Once they complete the transaction with Martinez, We move in immediately. What about Martinez's location? Stanley asked. We don't have an address. We'll follow them there, Chen replied. Better for our case anyway. Shows their willingness to complete the crime without coercion. Plus, it protects Mr. Brooks's position. If we arrested Martinez beforehand, they might suspect something. She pulled out a tactical radio, spoke briefly to the officers waiting by the door. They nodded, stepped outside. Through the window, I watched them walk the perimeter, assessing angles and cover points. Surveillance positions established by dawn, Chen continued. Unmarked vehicles, plain clothes. You won't see us, but we'll have eyes on every exit. When do you expect them to wake you? Megan said the appointment was mid-morning, probably around 9, giving time to get me dressed and cooperative. Perfect. That gives us 3 hours of daylight surveillance before movement. She made notes in her phone. Mr. Brooks, tomorrow will be difficult. You'll need to maintain the performance. I understand. The weight of it settled across my shoulders. One more act. One final deception before the curtain fell. Stanley closed his laptop. I'll have emergency restraining orders ready to file the moment they're arrested. Asset protection, injunctions against property transfer. Your inheritance will be protected. Chen packed up her test kit, sealed the tea bottle in an evidence bag. We move at 6 a.m. Stay in your room tonight, maintain the pretense. When she wakes you, you're groggy, compliant, trusting. Can you do that? I thought about decades of witnesses I'd prepared, performances I'd evaluated, lies I'd dissected in cross-examination. I can do that. They left together, taillights disappearing down the driveway. I locked the office, crossed the dark lawn back to my house. The television still played inside. They hadn't moved, hadn't suspected. I slipped through the back door, up the stairs, avoiding that creaking third step. In my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and checked my phone. Midnight approaching, hours until dawn, hours until Megan would knock on my door with false concern and real malice. Everything was ready. Now came the waiting. The planning session extended past midnight. Chen outlined tactical positions. 2 unmarked cars on adjacent streets. 1 officer on foot near the property line. Radio protocols for silent communication. Stanley reviewed the legal filings he'd prepared. Emergency protective orders, asset freeze paperwork, guardianship challenge documents, each piece positioned to deploy the moment arrests were made. Your inheritance will be locked down within an hour of their arrest, Stanley explained, stylus moving across his tablet screen. No transfers, no sales, no access. The probate court takes elder fraud seriously. They'll grant the freeze immediately. Chen added details about post-arrest procedure. We'll process them separately. Standard interrogation technique. Let them wonder what the other is saying. The recordings give us leverage. Most suspects crack when they hear their own voices played back. I listened, asked technical questions, made notes. But underneath the professional exchange, something else churned. These were preparations for my daughter's arrest. For watching her handcuffed, read her rights, taken away in a police vehicle. The thought should have broken me. Maybe it would have, before I'd heard her voice discussing nursing homes and asset seizures like I was already dead. We're set, Chen finally said, standing. 6 a.m., my team moves into position. You stay in character until we give the signal. Once they're in custody, you're free. I shook hands with both of them. Stanley's grip lingered, his eyes searching mine for signs of collapse. He wouldn't find any. Not yet. They left through the back door, engine starting quietly in the night. I watched their lights disappear, then crossed the lawn one final time. The grass was wet with evening dew, soaking through my socks. Small detail, mundane sensation. I cataloged it anyway, this ordinary moment in an extraordinary night. Inside, the television had been turned off. The house lay dark and silent. They'd gone to bed, satisfied with their progress, dreaming of Malibu villas and Santa Monica condos they'd never touch. I climbed the stairs, returned to my bedroom, locked the door. Then, I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself feel it. Megan, my daughter, the little girl who'd skinned her knee learning to ride a bike, who'd brought me terrible drawings I'd hung on the refrigerator, who'd cried in my arms when her mother left. Somewhere between that child and this woman, something had broken. Or maybe it had never been whole to begin with. I pulled up a photo on my phone, Megan at 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, my arm around her shoulders at some park. We looked happy. Maybe we had been, in that frozen moment. Maybe it was always performance, even then. The grief came sharp and sudden. I let it land, let it cut, then deliberately set it aside. Tomorrow required focus. Tomorrow required the prosecutor, not the father. The law didn't care about broken hearts. It cared about evidence and consequence. I checked my phone, 12:47. Stanley's text, try to rest. You'll need it. Chen's message followed. Team briefed. Positions confirmed for Euro 600. You're not alone in this. But I was alone. That was the truth underneath all the tactical planning and legal frameworks. My family had become my adversaries. My home had become a crime scene. The people who should have protected me had plotted my destruction. I was 67 years old, sitting in darkness, preparing to watch my daughter arrested. The isolation felt absolute. I lay back on the bed, still fully clothed, phone on my chest. Sleep wouldn't come, I knew that. Instead, I ran through tomorrow's performance step by step. Groggy when she wakes me. Confused but compliant. Trusting, because that's what they expected. The old man who drinks drugged tea and follows instructions. Outside my window, the neighborhood lay quiet. Streetlights cast shadows across the ceiling. Somewhere out there, Chen's surveillance team would be arriving in a few hours. Stanley would be awake too, reviewing his filings, making sure every legal protection was airtight. And here, in this bedroom where I'd lived alone for 2 years of retirement, where I'd imagined my remaining years passing peacefully, I waited for dawn to bring the final confrontation. My phone screen glowed in the darkness. 1:32, then 1:45, 2 o'clock. Time moved with deliberate cruelty, each minute a separate eternity. I thought about James, my brother who'd left me $5 million and a note for the brother who always did the right thing. He'd known something about doing right even when it hurt, even when it cost. This was right. I knew it with prosecutorial certainty. They'd planned elder abuse, conspiracy, fraud. They'd drugged me, or tried to. They'd spoken about nursing homes and asset seizures with casual cruelty. The law required consequence. Justice demanded response. But knowing it was right didn't make it easier. 3:15, 3:48, 4:21. The darkness outside began its slow shift toward gray. Not sunrise yet, just the first suggestion that night couldn't last forever. Somewhere in the house, Megan and Arnold slept peacefully, convinced their plan was proceeding perfectly. They didn't know that justice, like dawn, was inevitable. I remained motionless, phone in hand, waiting. The longest night of my life crawling toward its conclusion. Soon Chen's team would be in position. Soon Megan would knock on my door. Soon the final act would begin. But for now, in these last hours of darkness, I simply existed in the space between what had been and what was coming. A father preparing to prosecute his daughter. A victim setting a trap for his attackers. A prosecutor ensuring the law reached everyone, even those who shared his blood. The phone screen read 4:53. Dawn couldn't come fast enough. Morning light finally broke through my window after the longest night. I'd watched darkness fade to gray, then gray soften into dawn. 6 o'clock came and went. Chen's surveillance team moving into position around my house, invisible to the people sleeping downstairs. Around 8:30, footsteps approached my door. A gentle knock. "Dad, time to wake up." Megan's voice carried forced cheerfulness. "I scheduled that doctor's appointment for you. 10 o'clock, remember? You said yesterday you wanted to get your blood pressure checked." I'd been sitting on the edge of my bed for hours, but I lay back down, arranged myself like someone emerging from deep, drugged sleep. When she opened the door, I blinked slowly, raised one hand to my forehead. "I asked for an appointment?" My voice came thick, confused. I don't remember saying that. My memory. I let the sentence trail off, looked at her with uncertainty. "Must be getting old, but if you scheduled it, we should go. You're taking care of me." Relief flooded her expression. She believed it. Believed I was still foggy from whatever they had put in my tea, compliant and manageable. "That's right, Dad. Just a routine check. Get dressed and come down for breakfast." I moved slowly, getting ready, fumbled with buttons, took twice as long as necessary. Every gesture calculated to reinforce their confidence. When I descended the stairs, Arnold stood in the kitchen wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Morning, Thaddeus. Coffee's ready, and I made toast. He pulled out a chair with exaggerated care. This inheritance of yours, 5 million. We should celebrate properly. After the doctor gives you a clean bill of health, let's go somewhere nice. My treat. We're family, after all. The irony hung thick enough to choke on. Family. The word had meant something once. That sounds nice, I said, accepting the coffee cup with slightly trembling hands. Another calculated gesture. Very nice. We ate quickly, all of us pretending normalcy. Megan touched my arm periodically with false affection. Arnold discussed restaurants and celebration plans. I played the part, grateful, trusting, slightly confused. The prosecutor in me cataloged every detail while the father in me died a little more with each lie. We left the house shortly before 10. Arnold insisted I sit in the back seat, more comfortable for you, while he drove. Control, always control. I didn't protest, just settled into the leather seat and stared out the window. The journey took 35 minutes through progressively deteriorating neighborhoods. Pasadena's tree-lined streets gave way to commercial strips, then industrial areas, finally old buildings with cracked facades and barred windows. This wasn't where legitimate doctors practiced. This was where desperate people came for procedures they couldn't get legally. At a stoplight, I glanced in the side mirror and caught sight of a gray sedan 3 cars back. Detective Chen. Relief washed through me. Silent, invisible backup. My lifeline. We pulled up to a shabby building just after 10:15. The sign read, medical offices, but half the letters had faded. Arnold parked, helped me from the car with theatrical concern. We climbed narrow stairs to the second floor, entered through a door marked Martinez Medical Consulting. The waiting room held outdated magazines and worn furniture. No receptionist, no other patients. Martinez appeared almost immediately. Nervous-looking man in his 50s, wearing a doctor's coat over street clothes. His eyes darted to Arnold, then me, then away. "Mr. Brooks, please, come in." His voice wavered slightly. "I'm Dr. Martinez. Your daughter tells me you've been having some memory issues. Let's do a quick evaluation. Nothing to worry about." I shuffled into his examination room, let Megan guide me to a chair. Martinez pulled out a clipboard, began asking basic questions. Date, location, simple math problems. I answered slowly, hesitantly, occasionally glancing at Megan for confirmation. She squeezed my shoulder, playing devoted daughter while I played confused old man. 15 minutes. That's all he took for his thorough evaluation. Then he set down the clipboard and turned to Megan and Arnold. His expression practiced concern. "Mrs. Watson, Mr. Watson, I need to speak with you about your father's condition." He avoided looking at me directly. "He's demonstrating clear signs of cognitive decline. Memory lapses, confusion, difficulty with complex reasoning. In my professional opinion, he requires supervised care. I recommend pursuing legal guardianship immediately." Arnold leaned forward eagerly. "We appreciate your thoroughness, doctor. We've been concerned about him living alone, managing his finances. With his recent inheritance, significant assets, we need to ensure everything is properly managed." His hand moved to his jacket pocket. "You'll provide the documentation we need?" Martinez nodded, pulled out pre-printed forms from his desk drawer. Competency evaluation, recommendation for guardianship, medical justification, everything you'll need for court. Arnold's smile widened. He reached into his jacket, extracted a white envelope. The envelope I knew contained $1,500 in cash. Payment for fraud, payment for selling his professional ethics, payment for helping destroy an old man's autonomy. "As we discussed," Arnold said, extending the envelope. Martinez reached for it, fingers inches from the exchange. This was it. The crime completed, every element in place. Conspiracy, fraud, bribery, elder abuse, all of it captured, documented, ready for prosecution. I touched my jacket pocket, felt the weight of my phone. Chen was outside. Stanley would be nearby. Justice was seconds away. Arnold's fingers released the envelope. Martinez's hand closed around it. The transaction completed. The door burst open. "Police! Nobody move!" Detective Chen entered first, badge raised, 2 uniformed officers behind her. Martinez dropped the envelope like it burned. Cash scattered across the floor. Visible, countable, irrefutable evidence. Hands where I can see them. Chen's voice carried absolute authority. All of you, hands up now. Arnold stood, face draining of color. What is this? We're at a medical appointment. You're under arrest. Chen moved toward him with handcuffs ready. Arnold Watson, you're being charged with conspiracy to commit elder fraud, attempted administration of controlled substances, and bribery of a medical professional. Turn around. This is insane, Arnold's voice climbed. We haven't done anything. Tell them, Martinez. Tell them this is legitimate. But Martinez had his hands raised, eyes wide with panic. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything. I want a lawyer right now. Megan turned to me, her face crumbling. Dad, what's happening? Why are the police here? I stood slowly, dropping the confused elderly man act like a discarded costume. When I spoke, my voice carried 35 years of prosecutorial weight. I heard you, Megan. Through the window, yesterday afternoon. I heard everything. The color drained from her face. You... What? The nursing home, the drug coffee, the psychiatrist bribe, your husband discussing me like I was already dead. I kept my voice level, factual. I heard every word, and I recorded all of it. No. She shook her head frantically. No, Dad, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You conspired to declare me incompetent, drug me, seize my assets through fraudulent guardianship, and warehouse me in a facility where nobody would listen to me. I pulled out my phone, held it up. California Penal Code 368, elder abuse, PC 182, conspiracy, PC 347, administering drugs to commit a felony. You're looking at 3 to 4 years in prison, minimum. Arnold lunged toward the door. The officer caught him, forced him against the wall. Assault on an officer? That's another charge. Chen finished handcuffing Arnold, moved to Megan. Megan Brooks Watson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder fraud and attempted administration of controlled substances. Dad, please, Megan's voice broke. I'm your daughter. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself. The words came cold, final. You chose this when you decided I was an obstacle instead of a person, when you put a sedative in my tea, when you planned to lock me away and steal everything I had. Chen read them their rights while officers secured Martinez, the medical forms, the cash, the clipboard with falsified notes. Everything collected as evidence. Through the office window, I saw more patrol cars, crime scene techs arriving. Stanley appeared in the doorway, legal folders under his arm. His eyes met mine, a moment of shared professional satisfaction. Cases like this, clean evidence, clear charges, criminals caught in the act. These were the cases that restored faith in the system. Assets frozen, Stanley told me quietly. Emergency protective orders filed. Your will has been amended. Megan's removed as beneficiary. Everything's protected. They took Megan and Arnold to separate patrol cars. Through the window, I watched my daughter, handcuffed, crying, being read her rights in a parking lot in the worst part of Los Angeles. She looked back once, seeking my face, perhaps hoping for rescue. I turned away. Detective Chen drove me to the station for my official statement. 3 hours of testimony, documenting everything. The overheard conversation, the recordings, the drug tea, the fraudulent medical appointment, stenographer capturing every word, chain of evidence meticulously preserved. There'll be a rain Monday morning, Chen told me when we finished. Bail will be high given the charges. Your restraining order prohibits contact. They can't call you, can't approach you, can't ask for help. Good. The word felt insufficient but true. Stanley walked me to my car in the station parking lot. You did the right thing, Thad. You know that, right? I know. I gripped my keys, looked at the late afternoon sun. Doesn't make it feel better. It's not supposed to feel better. It's just supposed to be right. The drive home took 40 minutes. Traffic, weekend shoppers, ordinary people living ordinary lives. I parked in my driveway, entered my house, empty now, truly empty. No daughter cooking dinner, no son-in-law watching television, just silence and the ghosts of what should have been. I sat at my kitchen table and made the necessary calls. First to Amber Foster, the notary. The will needs immediate revision. Remove Megan Brooks Watson completely. I'll designate alternate beneficiaries. Second to Stanley. Begin divorce proceedings on her behalf if needed. I want no legal connections remaining. Third to my bank. Freeze all accounts pending investigation. Practical steps. Forward motion. The things you do when family becomes enemy and justice becomes necessity. Evening settled over Pasadena. In my quiet house, I poured a glass of water. Just water, nothing hidden, nothing dangerous, and stood at the kitchen window. Somewhere across the city, Megan sat in a holding cell. Arnold beside her, or separate, both facing reality. Martinez awaiting arraignment. All of them learning that consequences are real, that theft has a price, that betraying trust carries weight. I'd won. The law had functioned, evidence had prevailed, justice had been served, but victory tasted like ash. I picked up my phone one final time, dialed Amber Foster. I want to begin processing the inheritance immediately, and I need recommendations for estate planning, proper beneficiaries this time, people who won't try to kill me for it. Her voice carried sympathy. I'll have everything ready by Tuesday, Mr. Brooks. I'm sorry about your daughter. So am I. I ended the call. The house remained quiet. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, legal proceedings, the machinery of justice grinding forward. Megan would face trial, Arnold too. Martinez would lose his license and freedom. The system would function as designed, and I would remain here, in this empty house, with my inheritance and my vindication and the permanent absence of family. 67 years old, alone, victorious. Right, but hollow. I set down my phone and stared at nothing in particular, processing everything. The betrayal, the trap, the arrests, the look on Megan's face when she realized I'd known all along. Justice restored, family destroyed, both truths existing simultaneously, neither canceling the other. I took a breath, then another. Tomorrow would come regardless. The legal process would continue. Life would move forward because that's what life does. But tonight, in this quiet house, I simply existed in the space between victory and loss, acknowledging both, accepting neither as complete. The prosecutor had won his case. The father had lost his daughter. Both statements were true. Both statements were permanent. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching,